Also, I wanted to mention that my little kitty is with us today. He hasn't been with us for a while because what he told me, the reason he wasn't showing up as much is because he realizes how incredibly cute he is, and he thought that he was maybe distracting people from their yoga, and he knows it's already difficult, and he didn't want to make his cuteness add to that difficulty. But he's making an appearance today, so we'll see if he moves. Yeah, so let's lie down. Let's start in Shavasana. I want to just begin by relaxing. So just make yourself as comfortable as you possibly can. And I'd like to, yeah, we'll just start that way, open our class. Just trying to think of I never really have any announcements because it's all just so simple to do this. So and just allowing yourself to feel into your body. So feeling this felt sense of your body, and any sense of softening that you can bring to your experience. And preparing the body, preparing the mind, preparing the heart to be actually felt. So we come into the body, we soften as much as possible, and whatever we feel as we move in and out and compress and relax and open and explore, first of all, we want to be open to that. We want to be open to what our experience is. We also want to be open to learning from it as well. So not a practice where we're gathering information and comparing philosophies or opinions or belief systems, much more intimate and personal than that. We're allowing ourselves the movement inward to feel and experience and be open to learning whatever it is that the body, the mind, the heart would like to share with us. And for a moment, just bringing your awareness to this energy of resting. So a good chance for some of us, or most of us, that we've been active and busy and preoccupied. And so that holds a certain energy. And then the preparation to open our practice holds another kind of energy or a quality of energy. And then this energy of just arriving and resting. And this is very, very powerful energy. So we want to really feel the texture of this rest and this relaxation. Resting from our self-image, what we think of ourselves and what others think of us. Resting from any concerns, concerns about your own experience and concerns about the world. Resting from the habit of needing to believe in and engage with your thoughts. And let me go over that one again. So we're not trying to disturb our thoughts or judge them or suppress them. We're simply resting from the habits that we have of believing them and getting entangled in them. So we simply let them be. We let the thought process rest as well. Resting from any false beliefs or misunderstandings about impermanence, this tension that we tend to hold between wanting to project a sense of permanence, solidity, just on almost everything, and the tension that creates. So really resting from anything that is holding us in this tension that we may misunderstand or not bring in close, not really explore the powerful teaching of impermanence. And ultimately, resting from everything. And then simply bringing your awareness to your breathing and allowing your breath to very gently interweave with an inner silence. The inhale is born out of silence. The exhale returns us to silence. In the present moment, the exploration of yoga. So then one of the really beautiful and what I have experienced over the years as the true depth of this yoga is to attempt to bring this quality of rest into each and every one of the postures. So as we come into these postures, and if we're feeling some awkwardness or resistance, discomfort, even pain, making sure to take care of yourself at that level, that we're not wanting to push, we're not wanting to challenge the body, we're not wanting to stimulate any kind of additional tension in the body. We want to meet the discomfort, we want to meet the tension right where it is in a very gentle way. And like I said earlier, we want to be open to it first, and then we want to be open to learning from it. So as we begin to move, and you can begin to come on up now, we want to keep this in mind. We want to take this quality of restfulness, this quality of relaxation, and allow it to really be the foundation of each and every one of these postures. Okay. So we're going to come up, and if you do have a yoga strap or just a towel you can use, we can do that. If not, you can put a pillow or the bolster behind you and just interlock your fingers. This is what I do quite often. I do the shoulder opener to begin this way. So you can just place the hands on something behind you to elevate them. Or if you are having shoulder issues or you're not so sure, you can just bring the arms behind you and then start to raise them a bit just to open this upper thoracic area. But if you do have the strap, we can work with that. And this is something that is so important to do, because what tends to happen, and it's very, very subtle at first for most of us, is that the shoulders tend to just come a little bit forward of the hips. Yeah. So what this does is this starts a reaction in the body where the collagen fibers will follow this pattern. They just naturally do this. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Any misalignment, anything that the body is dealing with, an injury or trauma, these collagen threads will follow that and hold it in place and reinforce it. So what starts to happen, it then tightens, because the nature of the fascia is to tighten. So it tightens a little more, it tightens a little more. And before we know it, our natural posture that was straight and relaxed and shoulders over hips, the shoulders become forward of the hips. This will then affect your posture, obviously, but also the gait, the way that you walk. And it uses just excess energy that's not necessary, not to mention lots of then problems with the hips and the lower back. So to open the shoulders and to think bringing the shoulders over the hips, this is very beneficial. So what we're going to do, and we won't hold this for too long. Yeah, maybe I'll just do it sideways like this will be good. So you can just sit, if you could just sit with your left leg coming in towards you and the right leg in front of the left leg. So just in an open square position. Yep. So sit this way, nice and comfortably. Then if you have the strap or a towel, you can wrap one end around, let's wrap it around the left hand. And then what you want to do is you want to find a tension here for two things. So you can keep the elbows straight, and then you can bring both arms parallel to the floor like this. And then once you have that position, you can go ahead and wrap the other end around your hand. So I have both ends of my strap wrapped around my hand, and then I can bring both arms back, keeping the elbows straight. It's nice to keep the wrist straight as well if you can, and we'll just hold this so the arms are parallel to the floor. So this is what we're going to do. But if you've gone into it, let's come out of it and relax, because I want to time this very carefully, especially if you're not used to doing it. If already the shoulders have come forward a little and the fascia can be very tight here. So we're obviously not going to do this all at once. So let's do this together and in a timed way. Good. So good. So if you have that now, you either bring the arms behind you, like I described earlier, or with the strap. Let's go ahead and do that, and we'll begin. And notice if you are feeling tension, if you're feeling the resistance, if your breath has become a bit quicker, see if you can slow your breathing down. See if you can really relax the shoulders here. And just be interested in what you're feeling. And keeping in mind that ultimately, really, we're not trying to stretch. We're not really stretching the body. We're attempting to place very careful, mindful, therapeutic pressure into these fascial strands that are really the root of the resistance. And we do this slowly over time. They will certainly start to open and release. Then the body is much more available for stretching. But technically, we're not stretching right now, we're compressing. Good. So you can release that. Let's just release that. We're going to come back to it. So just let your arms relax, bring them forward. And then this position that we're in, with the left leg bent in front and the right leg in front of that, this open square, let's begin to come forward in a very gentle forward bend. So the open square is interesting because it can target a bit in the SI joint and up into the glutes, the medius and the maximus, and even into the piriformis on the right side. So really let the weight of the head relax down and just come into it as slowly and as carefully and as mindfully as you can. Again, inviting the quality of relaxation into the position, into the fibers of the body. And if the mind is still carrying some momentum of distractions or busyness or chattering, that's perfectly normal. We just allow it to be. And we start to explore that one of the functions of the yoga asana is to ground us in the body. So we can allow that chatter to be, that commentary, the internal dialogue, but again, not needing to engage it, not needing to get involved with it, but to feel that I can be literally grounded in my body. The discursive thinking tends to cause us to feel fragmented when indeed we're not. So we can feel that we are grounded and centered. And from this groundedness and this centering, then we can listen. We can listen to the body. We certainly can listen to the internal dialogue. We're not pretending it's not there or suppressing it. But again, with less and less engagement, we have more awareness to allow to feel into the body. The inhale is born out of stillness. The exhale returns us to stillness. Good. So let's come on up from here, but just you can keep your legs folded in just for a few moments. And I'd like you to just sit up and really feel grounded at the base of the pelvis as you're sitting. And then notice, where do your shoulders naturally come? Is there a tendency to have them a bit forward of the hips or even maybe a little back? We want them right over the hips. And just allow the spine to naturally elongate. It's something I was talking about on Friday, uh, and this may be obvious, but it's such a good thing to be reminded of, is that the spine is not straight and it is not stationary. It's always undulating. So as we're moving, whether we're walking or running or dancing or doing yoga, we want to really feel a sense that the spine is undulating. It has these four beautiful S curves that serve the purpose of cushioning when we walk or run or stand. So all of the weight doesn't stiffen up into the hips and the lower back. So part of the forward bending and backward bending in this practice is, especially with the lumbar curve, is to reestablish these curves so we maintain this cushioning and the spine doesn't feel stiff and stationary, because it's not. Good. So we'll try to remember that we had this right leg forward because we're going to come back to this. And then I would like you to get a hold of your large bolster. If you don't have the large bolster, you could easily use a couple of pillows for this, or you could fold up a blanket. I often fold a blanket to sort of mimic a yoga block. I don't think we want to use the yoga block tonight. So you either use a couple of pillows and we'll put those in the mid back, but I think a lot of you have the bolsters. So what I would like to do with this is sit on on one end of it. Yeah, we're going to place the far end into the mid back. So depends on your torso mostly, but these bolsters are nice and long. If you're using the pillows, it doesn't matter. You'll sit in front of the pillows and you'll place those pillows or that folded blanket into the mid back, sort of right below the shoulder blades, or right a little below the shoulder blades, but they can touch a bit. So what I'm doing here is I'm lying down vertically over this bolster till I feel the other end compress into my shoulder blades. So this is a little too high because I don't want the top of my head on the floor. So continuing to keep the feet on the floor, I'm just going to allow myself to come back a little bit. So I'm just going to scoot back a little bit. So now it's dropped a little bit below my shoulder blades, much better. And now the back of my head can be on the floor. So once you've established the position, shoulders, maybe, maybe not. A lot of times we can just stay here for a good amount of time and then at some point make a shift and come back a little further and bring the shoulders on the floor. It just brings it a little lower and really opens up that sort of mid to lower thoracic area. Yeah, but no need to have the shoulders on the floor right away. Back of the head, yes. Then extend the legs out, open them a little bit wider than your hips so the pelvis can relax as well. And the same thing if you are using the pillows or the blanket, just establish a place in the mid spine so you feel this nice arching and opening of the rib cage. And possibly in a very gentle way, you can explore this undulating of the spine with the breath. So, not to do anything direct, we're not trying to manipulate the spine, but possibly you can just feel the breath kind of rippling up and down the spine, sort of in an undulating kind of way, to feel that this this amazing mechanism of the spine is not straight and it's not stationary. And possibly to add to that, that you are not a solid system in any way. This is one of the I think I would say misunderstanding, that as we live in this body for so long, and we stub our toes, and we get hungry, and we get hot and cold, we get irritated, it just feels so solid, like we're just living in something solid. It's just simply not true. We're not a solid system. You're fluid, you're collagenous, biomagnetic, electric, energetic, flowing. So this entire system is just fluid intelligence. And it's often just very beneficial just to check in with that and just relax into that. Another quite amazing function of this fluid intelligence system that this body actually is that in a way it's a bit of a time capsule. No, not a bit of a time capsule. It is a time capsule. So we have our mental memories that we primarily use for functioning and reminiscing and projecting, but we also have biological memories. So when we're exploring the discomfort of the body or discomfort of the mind, even, how far back in time does the pain actually go? So we want to, in a way, we want to ride the pain further back. Often we stop and we start to analyze it or diagnose it or become concerned about it. So we're interested in relaxing into our cellular memory. And we can't do this in a linear way. We don't need more information to do this. We need to just relax more. So this is a very intuitive, quantum, non-linear way to explore yourself, to allow yourself to follow the pain further and further back. And as we do allow the rhythm of the breathing to allow us to simply relax into um, this sense of silence, this quality of silence. So this is a relaxation that is simply not contingent upon anything except just being. Then we can breathe with just a simple joy. Breathe and feel this joy simply because we're breathing, to just acknowledge the breath at this most fundamental uh, level of aliveness. And this is also allows us to really explore the qualities of yin that bring balance to the activities of our life and way of being. That we can simply breathe and be joyful for the breath. We can simply feel our aliveness and have great gratitude simply for that aliveness. We can feel the texture of our sensations, whether they're uncomfortable or not, and marvel at that, wonder at that you can feel sensation. So the quality of yin is really inviting us to be present with the immediacy of our direct experience as it is, and marvel at it and appreciate it and be grateful for it. So we get to uncomplicate. We get to uncomplicate everything that we hold and we think and we wish, and disappointments and concerns, and just realize in this very moment, breath by breath, we are overwhelmed by the capacity to feel and experience, and that is enough. This is the meaning really of contentment. Contentment is to be truly content. We are simply happy and grateful for what we have, not having to add anything else to that. Not wanting what we don't have. This is the contentment of yin, and the contentment of being, beingness. I am, I be, I am blessed just to be. So this may be an interesting time to shift a bit. If you still just have the back of the head on the floor and you want to get the shoulders, again, you would just scoot your body up a bit. It just sometimes, especially if you're using the bolster, because it's a little more intense compression than the pillows. But even if you're using the pillows or the blanket, it's sometimes nice with these longer holes to just make a shift. But we want to bring the compression down, not up towards the neck, but down towards the lower mid spine, not quite the lumbar. So it's just a few inches, really, just a little shift, and you'll feel that the body will respond and reverberate. So your choice. You may be in an interesting place where you are. Feel free to stay there. You may want to use this opportunity to make a bit of a shift. And indeed, if we do want to uh, ride the pain further back, then it's very important to not react to it. So the moment we react, we've kind of closed the gap between what we're feeling and opening into a deeper layers of sensation. So this is just a habit reacting. We want to, find a solution or fix something or start telling a story about it. We want to open that gap. We want to lengthen that gap between what we're feeling and reacting to it. It's not necessary to react, of course, unless your body is telling you, giving you a warning that you're not safe. Then, of course, we listen to that. But that is so apparent and self-evident. So, of course, we listen to that. I'm talking about this therapeutic discomfort, this pain that feels like it's woven into the bones themselves. This is the inward journey, is to allow ourselves to go right into the cellular memory, go right into the biological memory, not allow the mind to superimpose anything on it, but just come into this fluid intelligence of the soma itself. So let's bend the knees and put the feet on the floor and just have some very slow, intuitive movement, no rush to come out. And as we were invited to take the qualities of relaxation and bring them into the pose, so we've been in the pose and now we've got the sort of the buildup of the compression and the tension. So now we're invited to feel the qualities of the tension start dissolving back into relaxation. So do this very slowly. You want to feel that transitional energy. So the feet on the floor. If you can balance on your bolster, you could bring your knees up a bit. You could sway the knees back and forth. So as long as you feel safe and you're not in a hurry, be patient with yourself. We'll work our way off of this. And so once you roll off either your blanket, your pillows, or your bolster, you can just curl on your side. So this just brings us into a very mild, gentle, safe forward bend. And we'll just rest here for a bit curled up. I mean, one of the ways that's very interesting to start to look at the sort of the process, this mind-body process, mind-body consciousness process, is to uh, really feel that at some level we're just this conglomeration of conditions. The mind likes to be very specific in that we have a left brain and we have an elbow and we have a lower lumbar, but those are just images. That's just language. We are a complexity of processes. We are a conglomeration of conditions. And the yoga is simply attending to those conditions, attending to those processes. This is what makes it so incredibly unique to each of us, because different things will arise for us within the same pose, within the same practice. So different things at different times for different people. We're just creating this sensitive container to attend to these things. And I don't mean attend to fix them. I mean attend to bring our attention to whatever it is in a very open, non-judgmental way. So let's come on up from where you are curled up, and we'll sit up. And we're going to go to the other side of that lovely forward bend by bringing the right leg in front of us and the left leg in front of that leg. So obviously a little different for the hips and all of those areas I mentioned on the right side will be different on this side. So always know that you can have as much bolstering up front as you need for these forward bends. Anything to slow it down, anything to allow the muscles to relax and feel as unengaged as possible, to allow the weight of the head to draw you into the upper spine. So just layer by layer, you are coming into this at whatever depth is most appropriate to you. Depth, aesthetic, none of these things are really relevant. What's relevant is what you're feeling sensation wise, feeling wise, thought wise, moment to moment. So we set up this asana as a container to then see what's arising and then what are we attending to. So this is an invitation then. This is an invitation to experiencing your body as a conglomeration, a complexity of conditions or processes. And this certainly includes the mind and the breath. So this exploration has nothing at all to do with self-image. This exploration is the visceral sense of being, the visceral sense of your vibratory aliveness. And the conditions are either open and flowing and we barely know they're there, or these conditions have some sort of resistance, some sort of density. And what we're attending to is how do we listen to, pay attention to this density and allow the residue to just simply slowly dissolve away. And this is precisely why we cultivate an inner quietude, a sense of our natural equilibrium. So, from a quiet place, then we can attend to whatever it is that is drawing our attention. And part of the intelligence of the organism is that it uses discomfort to get our attention. So this is why we don't want to disturb it or judge it or repress it. This is why we become quiet and relaxed and are gentle with whatever we're feeling. even if it's very, very painful, we be very gentle with it because it's calling us. It's inviting us to attend to something. And if we disturb that, vibration of stillness, that vibration of equilibrium, then the mind is just going to jump in and disturb things, let's just say. So we want to relax from the disturbance of the mind, the internal dialogue, quiet the internal dialogue to a place where we're feeling energy at a very different level. Energy without interpretation. So let us come on up again one more time here and see if you can feel this. The value of coming up slowly is to really feel that your spine is undulating. It's not just forward bend, straight spine. There's a process, there's a spacing between the vertebra. We want to feel this. We really want to start to get to know and educate our spine. So we'll just sit here for a little longer. If you'd like to open your legs out, you can, but we're going to go ahead and grab if you have the yoga strap or the blanket, or just bring the arms back behind the back. So this is where we began this seemingly unending sequence. So we're just going to go back there. And again, for just a limited time. So again, what I do is I find my distance and then I wrap my other hand. So again, I'm trying to keep my both arms parallel to the floor if that's possible, the wrists and the elbows straight, and just enough tension to open up this upper chest. Good. So whatever variation of this you're doing, let's begin. And as you're now holding the shoulders stationary, see if you can just allow the chin to go up and down a bit. Not too much though. And what I would like you to feel is the movement and the sensitivity of that upper spine. So just really feel that. You can even go side to side a little bit, but it's nice to chin up and down. And then see if you can feel a sense of connectivity down the spine, right down into the sacral spine. And we may just have to visualize that if we can't feel it, but it's certainly happening. And the same thing, sitting here and feeling the sacral spine and the lumbar setting there, there's a direct connection to the upper spine. Okay, good. So let's release this, whichever variation you have of the arms. And now let's lie down. We'll come back into Shavasana and take a rest from here. I was thinking that the word yoga is a lot like life, the word life, or the word love. That the word, barely scratches the level of meaning. It doesn't really give it any meaning. and that yoga and life and love, that really no one can translate that for us. It doesn't need to be translated. Possibly the best translators of these words are art. Yes, creativity, expressing yoga, expressing love, expressing life. So when we use specifically the asana, this is precisely what we're doing. We're allowing ourselves to step back from any definitions, any preconceptions that we have about yoga, about body, mind, about love, about life, and just start to appreciate the incredible power of our own direct experience. And just as in a pose, we can feel the resistance of physical discomfort and how we navigate that. The same thing with coming into this immediacy of our present experience. There are so many things that can resist that. We resist life, we resist love, we resist the flow of yoga, because the mind becomes such a trap of distractions and preconcerns, and thinking that we need to recollect the past over and over for some strange reason, and we need to project into the future and make sure we think we know what might happen. So we continually have this static of the mind that's back and forth and back and forth. And what yoga and life and love, and really it's the same thing, is inviting us always. The invitation is always there to come into the immediacy of how the present moment is unfolding. And then from here, this is so beautiful, because when we start to open to this life and love and yoga, we get to explore the nature of ourself. So we get to see the distractions and the static and the habits of past and future for what they really are. And this is really the doorway where the exploration really begins. And it's an unending and very beautiful exploration. Okay, so I'm hoping that you are lying on your back at this point. If you're not, just come lying on your back. If you are, you're ready for the next thing. We're just going to come into a half crescent position to laterally flex the spine and pull on the psoas a little bit. So the way that we do this is the upper body is going to stay first grounded and not move. And we're going to walk both heels over to the left side without bending either knee and without letting the right hip roll over. Yeah, so keep that right hip down. Then once the legs are to where your range of motion is, just scoot the body over in the same direction. So your body's creating this lovely half crescent shape. And again, not allowing the right shoulder to roll over. This is perfectly fine if you want to stay like this. Two things you can do. One is you can bring the right arm up over the head and place the back of the hand on the floor. We don't want the arm to hang in the air. And then if you would like, you can take the right ankle and cross it over the left ankle. And this is where that pulling on that right side, if you're feeling some tension pulling along that right side from the lower ribs, maybe into the hip or lower, there's certainly some psoas muscle involved with that. This is a lovely muscle to open because it's very big and very important. The other thing to be aware of when I was talking about that you are not a solid system is that this system, because it is so fluid and because it is so intelligent, is changing all the time. So part of what we're doing is we're exploring how do we weave in our knowledge and our creativity into a system that is already changing. So it's not that it's an unchanging system and we're going to apply techniques or information from the outside and change it. No, not at all. The system is changing. It's incredibly intelligent in the way it's connected and the way it communicates these conditions and processes communicate. But the art, if you will, the art of maintaining your sense of well-being is how do you take then what you know, your collection of experience, and then creatively weave it in to a system that's already changing. This is also called healing. So even though we are healthy, we're also always healing. And I think always and without exception that the one of the most effective ways to really ground and initiate this healing, this creative change within our own fluid system is with our breath. So restricted breathing patterns, not being able to take in the full volume of air that your lungs can receive, and on, all can compromise the system, all can dull the awareness, can make the system sluggish and not as susceptible to this process of healing. So we want to feel the breath is free. We want to feel that it is rhythmic, cleansing, and that we can continue to encourage the respiratory diaphragm to come down a little lower on the inhale, come up a little higher on the exhale, not by pushing or pressing, but relaxing it. Good. So if you do have that right arm over your head, let's relax that. If you do have your ankles crossed, let's uncross them. And then just walk the heels and bring the upper body to a straight spine. And before we go to the right side, let's just bring the knees up to the chest and wiggle and wobble a bit. You can either wiggle or wobble, but maybe don't do both at once, because that might turn into dancing on your back if you wiggle and wobble at the same time. So let's stay in here and either wiggle or wobble your hips. Good. Okay. Good. So let's relax the legs back out. So from a nice straight spine, the other side is we will walk the heels over to the right. So the bottom half of the crescent. Once you have that, we'll bring the upper body over. We're just kind of scooching over. Both knees relatively straight, left hip, left shoulder on the floor. You can bring the arm up over the head just to extend this. It's nice for the upper ribs and the shoulder. Back of the hand on the floor, and then the left ankle will cross over the right ankle. So it's the outside leg coming over the the right leg. And very often we hear the metaphor of this yoga as just as a practice of self-inquiry or self-realization, the metaphor of peeling layers of an onion. So we explore this sense of our body, this sense of ourself, layer by layer. So I think that it is a good metaphor that we can peel back this residue of discomfort. We can peel back the way that the mind, the thoughts create these layers of self-image, these masks, these personas, and peel back a persona, mask after mask. But I think it's important to remember that there's nothing at the center. That often, if we have this image that we're peeling back layers, and we're gonna come to some sort of something, yes, some sort of a prize or goal or destination. If yoga is suggesting this is not the case. Yoga is suggesting when we peel back the layers of our supposed self, our apparent solidity, our apparent identity, there's nothing there. We just have a pile of layers. So this is where the real inquiry begins, is then who am I? Just like the physical body, with the way that the fascia holds everything, it holds everything in tubes. It's surrounding everything, it's encapsulating everything, from the largest organs and muscles to the most refined vessels, the most refined neurotransmitters. Everything is tubular, tubular, tubular. But then where am I within all this, in all this physicality? And this is not a question that we really answer. This is the yoga. The yoga is peeling back the layers and then just sitting quietly in silence. And then coming to this place where there are not even any more questions. The silence itself becomes the answer. Everything really is mind at just various levels of vibration. This is why we're much more interested in the felt sense, the vibration of the body, than our concepts of the body. The content, we're interested in how it is feeling, how is the heart pulsating. So if you still have that arm over the head, this would be a good time to release it. If you have the ankles crossed, you can uncross them. And we'll bring the body back to a straight spine. And since you've been on your back, we can take a rest here. If you'd like to come into a fetal position or a child's position or anything that you find more restorative, feel free to do that to rest. And this can be, quite disturbing or even disorienting or frightening for the ego, to tell the ego that if you peel back all the layers, you're not there. No, no, no. The ego, will find a way. What the ego wants is happy to peel back the layers, is happy to take the journey, is happy to become very spiritual. But then what the ego wants is a very spiritual image of itself. It wants to feel like it's arrived at some place of enlightenment or awakening. But to tell the ego that it's not there at the end of the supposed journey, this can be very disturbing. And we want to really honor that. We want to honor that we're not projecting ourselves into some ideal state or some fantasy state, that we're trying to be as fully human as possible, to really feel just the fabric of being alive, and not just this physical journey, but how we are taking in the stimulation and the sensations of life, processing them, and then what are we putting back out. And this is one of the beautiful things about the yoga's mysticism, is in some ways very generic. That is, it's really this invitation for genuine self-inquiry. That if we feel we have this self-image or this sense of self or this senses of identity, inferiority, superiority, yoga is saying, okay, sit quietly and find that. See if you can find what you think you are. See if you can find a boundary between this sense of yourself and all of life. It's quite a lovely journey. So let's come on up, please. And let's bring the legs forward. And I'm going to suggest we put something under the knees. If you have one of those small bolsters, you can use a small bolster, or you can just roll up a towel or a blanket. I just want to have a little bit of release initially for the hamstrings. So you can roll up your blanket and just put the knees under them at about the width of, I shouldn't say the blanket, but at the width of the small bolster. So you roll your blanket up. So it's a little wider than hip width. Use the small bolster if you like, or one of these rolls. And then let's just come forward. And again, as slowly and as carefully as you can, use some support to lean on to control the descent. I'd say probably the most mystical thing about yoga is that yoga is simply asking us to consider that separation is illusory, that ultimately that's the healing. The healing is healing from the illusion of separation. But yoga is not offering this as a philosophy or a belief system. So from the experience of silence, from the experience of quieting down the opinionated, judgmental fabric of belief systems, we simply investigate, is my breath in any way separate from my body? Can I actually find a boundary? Are my thoughts really separate from my feelings? Can I find that boundary? Are my sense perceptions really separate from the world? Can I actually find a boundary? Let us come on up, please. So just roll up, and then whatever support you're using under the knees, you can just put it aside. And let's open the legs pretty much to your full width. So whatever your range of motion is, without forcing the hips too much. And then we'll come forward again. And so resting on whatever support you need, if you're not coming all the way to the forearms or lower. So little by little, we can begin this very delicate and pristine discernment between our ideas about the body and the direct experience of the body. And not simply at the level of self-image, but the actual visceral sense of the physicality, the ideas about that become layered and complicated and often confused, and our direct experience about it. Again, direct experience without interpretation. So let's come on up from here. And let's bring the legs back to where they were. You might even bring them in a little closer, just a tiny bit past hip width. And I'm going to suggest maybe not using the roll under the knees. So this may inhibit your forward bend a little bit. If it's really tight, you can sit up on the edge of something. So sometimes just sitting on the edge of something tilts the pelvis forward a bit, and that can allow the lower back to release a little bit. So you could do that, but if you put something under the knees, it's going to take you right back where you were. What I'm trying to do here is take this torso weight and put it more in the back of the leg, so there'll be a little bit more balance between the lower back. So again, depth is not important, aesthetic is not important, it's just how you're feeling. So control the upper body weight either with the hands or with some bolsters. Settle into a position that feels appropriate for the moment, your body as it is in this moment. One of the things I've been just realizing more and more, it's just been such a beautiful intuitive learning for me. And so much of it does come out of this practice, is that the conditioning of my mind is relatively unreliable. Sometimes it has something powerful and truthful to share with me, but often it doesn't, because it's been filtered through so many layers of just my life's conditioning. But my body will always tell me the truth. So this is part of the balance that we're really cultivating. When is it appropriate to listen to the mind? How do we listen to the body? And then how do we combine those two? And this is the really wisdom. This is taking different layers, if you will, of intelligence and weaving them into just a deep body-mind wisdom. And often this takes the power of this practice is inviting us to slow down enough to listen. Again, to not always be reacting, but to take the time to feel and be open to the messages of the body, not to be reactive to the discomfort. Resting, the list of things we are resting from, well, certainly one of them is resting from our compulsive need to know, our compulsive need for perfection. Okay, let us come on up from here. We'll just roll up. And let's take a rest. So put yourself in a restful position and we will take a rest from here. And while you're resting here, see if you can get a bit closer to the actual physical beating of your heart. So sometimes we can feel this, actually physically feel it. Other times we have to weave some creative visualization, but we do know that it is beating, it is pulsating, it is keeping an internal rhythm. So of the many incredible functions that this pulsation has, one of its functions is to remind us that we are here. So we have the rhythm of the breathing where the inhale and the exhale create a sense of equilibrium. We have a left hemisphere of our brain and a right hemisphere of our brain that are continually in this dance of equilibrium. But we also have the pulsation of the heart itself that is in this continual dance of equilibrium. And sometimes it's really beneficial just to allow your awareness to just permeate the pulsing of your heart. Okay, so let's come on up, please. And this next thing is a lovely, lovely, this is sort of a counterbalance in the undulating of the spine from the first thing we did with the mid spine, now going into the low spine. And we want to have this relatively mild to semi-moderate, so we can stay a little bit longer. And that will be determined by how much you roll up your blanket. So I'd like you to take one of your blankets and roll them up. And then if you don't have a small bolster, I'm going to use and show it with a small bolster, but the alternative would be to take a second blanket, but not roll it, but fold it. So several folds of a second blanket in order to kind of mimic the length and the width of the small bolster. And whether you're using the bolster or the blanket, we're just going to take one end of it and place it over the end of the bolster. So we have a nice lump here over the roll to fit into the lower back. So the only thing, if your blanket's not long enough, you need something for your head if you're using the blanket, and you may need something for your head using the small bolster. So the small bolster is going to be set up the same way. It's going to just, one end of it will be placed over the end of it. So we're going to place our spine vertically over this. So this hump here is then going to hold your lumbar curve, if you will. So we're going to sit on the floor in front of this. So the blanket is going side to side horizontally. The bolster or your blanket is going vertically, sitting on the floor, then tucking that bolster or blanket right into that lumbar curve. Yep. And then allowing the upper body to relax back. So for some of you, torso length, the head may indeed just rest on the end of the bolster. What I like to do is take my blanket and make a very comfortable small roll. So instead of using it as like a pillow in the back of my head, I just make a little roll and place a roll under my neck. It's very nice. Yeah, so it's supportive, but it's supporting the cervical curve as the lower blanket is supporting the lumbar curve. And then just let your legs relax out and make sure this is at a good depth. So you're feeling it, certainly. If you're feeling it, then you're doing it, but not that you're going to be preoccupied with the discomfort or certainly move close to injury. One of my very early yoga trainings, I forget who it was, but it was presented that if you can stay fully present in and out of your poses, you will never get injured. And I always explored that. And anytime I did tweak something or pull something or something wasn't right, it was always because I wasn't present. So we want to stay very present with the experience of how the sensations are, communicating to us, informing us, and sometimes they're informing us, but oftentimes they're warning us. And if they're warning us, we want to heed the warning and act appropriately. in some ways, we're really allowing the body to uncondition itself. So this is something very interesting to explore. So we just allow the mind and the breath to settle into each other. And it's, in a way, it's just a trust that the body will do this. It will uncondition itself through this level of clarity and observation, through this level of relaxation and stillness. It's like a rock, that a rock is heavy, it has heaviness. Water that is wet, it's wetness. A sky that's open and endless. So the body also has its own equilibrium, its essential way of being as it is. And this is what's interesting, is when we can come to a place where we're not having to add anything. We certainly don't have to take anything away, but we don't have to add anything. We're interested in just allowing the body to come to its natural equilibrium, its essential way of being, just exactly the way it is. So let's go back to this interweaving of yoga and life and love. So the invitation of yoga, the invitation of life, the invitation of love is to relax from all of our conceptual frameworks, anything we think we know about this, and just simply relax into the presence. Not to be present with, just presence. Presence of life itself, presence of love, presence of yoga. And to feel this throughout our entire beingness. So no separation between mind and heart, body and world, but just a presence, an interweaving of this presence, a unification, a wholeness of this presence. So not only is the physical heart pulsating, but at the deepest level, all of your cells are pulsating. And the primary pulsation is of presence. So this is what we relax into, simply ourselves as presence. So let's increase our breathing a bit, just a little bit deeper breathing. And in any way that you would like to visualize this, I would just invite you to let the breath ripple up and down your spine with this imagery and this feeling of this undulation of the spine. So just one spine. We don't need to name the parts. We can just feel it, feeling a space between the vertebra, feeling the spine as movement and energy, flow and openness. And just allow the breath to carry this visualization, to carry this felt sense. So we're breathing into the spine. We're allowing the breath to travel, to spiral, to intermingle. And then when you're ready, we can begin to move out of this backward bend. You're always invited to stay longer. You come into a final Shavasana, or you could sit up and we will take some time to close our yoga. I am what does not change. And namaste.